Hi everybody, welcome back to the basement and to the Great Lakes Eastern Model Railroad. Today we're going to take a full tour of the layout. I try to do these about once a year. So this will be the grand tour of the Great Lakes Eastern HO Scale Model Railroad for 2025. For the past few years, around this time of year, I try to do a full layout tour to show the progress from one year to the next. So please feel free to go back and check out last year's and the year before. We're going to start here at a map of Michigan to kind of show you the track plan that I've created and that we'll be following, starting from south and heading north. So the layout starts down here near Dearborn, Michigan. We're going to head north towards Flint, west to Durand, north to Tawas, north to Saginaw. Then from there we'll go a northwest direction over to Midland. From there we'll head east to Bay City. And then we'll follow the Lake Huron shoreline, going through Tawas, and eventually ending in Alpena. And then a second segment of the layout is up here in Sault Ste Marie, Michigan. It crosses the border and passes the Soo Locks into Sault Ste Marie, Ontario. And then layout B depicts Sault Ste Marie, Ontario on up to the Agua Canyon Provincial Park. All right, so first I'll go over a couple of stats. The model railroad is actually made of two layouts. The primary layout we'll see first is what I call layout A. You're looking at a snippet of that right now. It is DCC powered using a Digitrack system. The layout measures 31.5 feet long by 21.5 feet wide. It is modular. So the entire layout can be taken apart section by section to be moved. Construction on this particular layout started in 2007. So it's over 15 years in the making. The second layout is what I call layout B. It's a smaller auxiliary layout. It is DC powered. That's why I run some of my older equipment. And that layout measures 5 by 10 feet, and you'll see that later in this video. For layout A, I use Atlas Code 83 FlexTrack and a combination of Atlas and Pico turnouts. And then layout B is Code 100 Atlas. Currently Atlas turnouts, but eventually I'm going to switch most of them over to Pico as well. The average radius on layout A is about 32 inches, but the minimum is probably 27, and that occurs in 2 or 3 places in the layout, and it's only for a brief moment. So most of my, well, all of my locomotives and rolling stock can negotiate the curves with no problem at all. But again, overall, the average is about 32 inches. So performance-wise and appearance-wise, the trains look pretty good. Minimum radius on layout B is much tighter. It's a smaller layout, older layout. It has a minimum radius of 18 inches. It is double track. The outer track is about 22, and that inner one at 18. Okay, so we're going to start at the southernmost point. This is a representation of the Norfolk Southern shops that are in Melvindale, Michigan, which is just south of Dearborn. And I do want to point out, as we go around the layout, every one of the scenes on this layout are modeled after a real location. A couple of slight liberties taken here and there, but that's to be expected on most model railroads. So yes, here's the shops. I only have one Norfolk Southern engine as of right now, which is kind of funny, considering this is the Norfolk Southern shop. And that's that Conrail over there. Off to the east of this scene is I-75. There's a neighborhood right here, which again, all these houses and these streets are modeled after a real place. And that theme, like I said, will continue. On the corner here is a cutout of the Henry Ford Museum, most specifically the location where the Allegheny number 1601 is on display. And right next to that is the DeWitt Clinton, and there's a few people taking photographs and looking at the locomotives. We have a small old-time cemetery here that represents many old cemeteries that are found across Michigan. Here we are looking back south in this case. Now we're going to start heading north towards Flint. We're going to pass by the Menards building here. There are many Menards structures on this layout. There's a Menards building there. That FedEx building that we passed a moment ago is Menards. And so is that switch tower right there. As we continue this way, we come into Flint. And this is the truck assembly plant located on the west side of Flint. And the assembly factory there, more factory against the backdrop. And here's the loading area to put the completed trucks on the auto racks. More of them out here ready to go. There's a flat car with some of the truck frames on it. Being in Michigan, of course, we have the Polar Express. There's an advertisement for that. Another Menards building. The dollar store, strip mall. See, I made signs to put in front of the industries and businesses. On this side of the billboard is an advertisement for the Agua Canyon tour train. We'll see that later in the video. Here on the corner is an HO scale model of my house. The one we're in right now, the one the layout is in right now. There's back. Little barbecue grill there on the deck. Swing around and let you see the front again. I got some plexiglass on the corner, on most corners actually, to protect the layout. And then from there, we're going to head west to Durand. And here's the really popular and famous Durand Union Station. This was kit bashed from a Walther's City Station kit. See some people there watching for the trains. There's a guy right there with his tripod making some YouTube videos. Nice brass radio tower back here. It does have a light on it, but I haven't wired it up yet. I bought it at a train show in Lansing, Michigan a couple years ago. There's a caboose in the park here in Durand. The prototype caboose is a grand trunk caboose that I need to pick up and eventually replace with this UP. On the other side of this piece of backdrop, which by the way, most of the backdrop are these inexpensive $1 pieces of foam board. Under this plastic bag is the control center for the layout. The bag is here for two reasons. A, it covers all the electronics and stuff, so when I'm looking at the layout or doing these videos, it kind of obscures the mess of components and wires and whatnot. And it also protects the electronics from the plumbing above. But we'll just take a peek under there. There's the brains of the operation. It's the DCS 51 Zephyr command station. Now that does not power the layout. The layout is powered by two DB210s right here. There's one here and there's one on the other side of the layout underneath. And then right there I have the Digitrax wireless adapter. And yep, those two phones right there are what control the trains on this layout. And then there's also an old Tech 2 DC transformer here that powers a few of the switches and will power some of the lighting. Continuing to move north from Durand, we're going to go through some farmland. Tractor out there plowing the fields. Probably saw this shot during the intro or when I talked about the stats of the layout. A few trailers. The farmstead with a large pole barn. Shiawassee River, and you'll see that wind around the next scene here. This section right here lifts out. So if I step back, you'll see that this module is quite deep. It's 5 foot from here all the way back, so I can't reach back there from the aisle. So I had to make a lift out so I can get in there every now and again to work on a layout or access trains or whatever it may be. But what we're coming up to here is the Steam Railroading Institute, which is located in Owasso. And that is where Berkshire number 1225 Pierre Marquette steam locomotive is housed and maintained, and that of course is the steam engine that was that they used to model the steam engine in the book and movie Polar Express. And in Michigan, throughout the year, especially around the holidays, many excursion trains run around lower and mid-Michigan being pulled by that very locomotive. As we start to swing north, you'll see more of the Shiawassee River winding through. I believe there's a couple of people on a raft. This part of the river is fast flowing, and I'm not going to say rapids, but the waters are a little bit rougher there. Much of the southern section of the layout is double track main. But as we continue to head north, these two tracks swing back around to where we started on the other side in Melvindale, so that creates like a southern loop, if you will. But then this main loop here goes down to single track, and that will take us around the rest of the layout. So in theory, I could run 3 locomotives, not locomotives. I can run 3 trains, continuous running in loops at one time. This is also a reversing loop, and there's another one right over there. They are fully functional, and I can turn complete trains around. A lot of farmland here as we go through mid-Michigan. The grain elevator and feed store. Cornfields. Some harvesting is beginning. The wheat fields out front. We have a rail yard here. And we continue west for a moment. And we wind up in Midland, where Dow Chemical is. Much of Dow Chemical is being, or I have modeled using the Walthers refinery kits. But Dow is a chemical plant. That's the pellet center. Forget this is some sort of processing center for like ethanol and such. So by combining these different types of buildings together, I think it makes a believable representation of Dow Chemical. So from Dow Chemical, from Midland, we're going to head east towards Bay City. So we'll go back through the same territory we were in. And we will now go under I-75 and we'll wind up in Bay City there on the other side. So here we are on the other side of I-75. That's where I just was. So this overpass is a scenic divider. So on this side, you can see is the Norfolk Southern shops where we started. And I said this was I-75 that was from the east of that. Well, here in Bay City, I-75 is to the west of Bay City. However, Bay City, Dearborn, they're not east-west to each other in reality. That's why this is a scenic divider. When you're in that scene, I-75 is there to the east. And when you're in this scene, I-75 is there to the west. So it serves dual purpose. This is a small representation of the Winona Yard, just to the north of Bay City. You see a lot of mid-Michigan power here, like Lake State Railway, some Rail America, Huron and Eastern, and Central Michigan Railroad. Other railroads you'll find on the layout are Norfolk Southern, Conrail, Canadian National, CSX, Amtrak. To the north is Wisconsin Central, Algoma Central, and Canadian Pacific. So now we're going to head back into farm country. There's a lot of farmland on this layout because I feel that's something that a lot of modern railroads lack, is open spaces, countryside, farmland, forests. So I wanted to make sure to include that because there's a lot of that scenery in Michigan. Farmstead right here. We're kind of looking at that second Y I mentioned. So this would be the northern loop here. And this outer track is the main loop that would go all the way around the layout. We have horses, we have sheep, we have cows, we have pumpkins. Many farms in Michigan have multiple animals. Old pickup in the back of the property. High tension towers that I have recently put wires on. The other power poles and telephone poles that are around the layout. I probably won't be wiring most of these because whenever I reach into the layout for something, most likely I'm going to get snagged on them, and that's just going to cause a headache. This is U.S. gypsum in Alabaster, Michigan. It's no longer rail served. I believe that ended around 2000. This pipe here would take the gypsum product out to Lake Huron where they could load it onto Great Lakes freighters or boats. Here's a feral gas business as we start to head north into Tawas. So there's the Menards Taco Bell. That's a Woodland Scenics house back there. All the grade crossings on the layout have some sort of signage or signals. The signals aren't wired up yet, but they are in place, along with many of the street lights. Some are wired, but many are not. Gas station here, made from a Walther skid. I turned it into a Marathon gas station. Got a beach out front. The old Detroit Mackinac roundhouse and turntable, just before it was torn down in the very early 2000s. Today a Walmart stands here. And the campground out front. It's kind of a neat spot on the layout because the main line here is behind all of the scenery. So the trains have to run through it instead of out in front. Nice roadside inn, roadside diner. Pretty common Atlas kit. Got a few of these little dumpsters I found at a train show. They're really cool. Some have trash in them and some are closed. There's a lot of little knickknacks on the layout that I picked up from vacations over the last few years, like this little teepee. It's like a little gathering place there at the campground. Getting into the woods as we head north towards Alpena. Up there on the hill you see a couple of dinosaurs, and that's actually a nod to a real place. It's called Dinosaur Gardens, and that's in Osneek, Michigan. There's Menards Arby's. Next to that, Culver's. Nice school bus. The street lights through this section are wired up. They do come on. Now we're in Alpena. Here's the Bayview Park. Band shell where they hold concerts throughout the summer. Playground, ice cream truck, a food truck. The porta potties are set up. People playing basketball. This is a really fun area. Got a marina out here and a pier. Me and my family have walked that many, many times. And again, all modeled at the real places. Back there I even have a printout of the actual street as you would see it just after you cross that railroad crossing there. Some of the buildings aren't quite in the prototype places, but they're close. Again, model railroad, sometimes you do have to take some liberties. There's a hydroelectric dam between the two bridges here. Water tower, Alpena power plant. I have a lighthouse out here. This lighthouse is meant to represent several different lighthouses along the Lake Huron shore. The lighthouse that's in Alpena is only about this high. It is red, like the top of this here, but it doesn't have the large tower. But there are other lighthouses nearby that do. I like this kit so much. I was just going to build the top part, like the prototype one, but I liked it so much I decided to build the whole lighthouse and have it represent many lighthouses. Thought it would fit the theme just fine. Another roundhouse that still exists in Alpena. Used today by the Lake State Railway. Small ball diamond. This large industry we're coming into is the Lafarge cement plant, supposedly the largest one in North America. As I was going around, you may have noticed a freighter appearing in and out of the shot. We'll see more of that in a minute. But here is another freighter. This is the cement carrier Alpena. Large lake boat. I've recently finished detailing all the freighters. There's still more to go, but I think they look pretty good where they are. Next to the silos, getting ready to be loaded. Really like how these freighters are turning out. I might do a separate video at one point just showing the freighters and explaining how they were made. Here's the Lafarge cement plant. Track here comes all the way around. All this track is powered. Little switcher. Does represent a small red switcher that they used to have. I don't know if it's still there or in operation, but this little Bachmann unit, I found that and I said that looks just like a photograph of one of the little switchers they had there, so I picked it up. Limestone quarry. Of course I use that to help make the cement. Got the Thunder Bay, a little bit of here in the corner, and family fishing. And then we're hitting the backdrop. So that's the end of the first segment of the model railroad on layout A. Let's jump over and see the second segment. So the second segment starts here opposite of the backdrop piece. This separates us from Dow Chemical in Midland from Sault Ste Marie in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So we start here on the Michigan side. This canal right here goes to the Edison power plant in Sault Ste Marie. The power plant's a quarter of a mile long and powers much of the city in that area. And maybe the Sioux Locks, I don't remember exactly. And here's the big bridge. This is a fan favorite, modeled after the International Bridge that crosses the border past the Sioux Locks. This is a pretty impressive scene. You have the railway bridge here and the highway bridge behind it, which is where I-75 terminates. It's northernmost point. The International Railway Bridge is made up of many sections. You have a lift bridge, then you have a double bascule bridge, then you have several Warren truss bridges, and this is the point where it actually crosses the border. And then down on the Canadian side is a swing bridge. And what is all of this crossing? The St. Mary's River, St. Mary's Rapids, and the Sioux Locks. And there's that freighter I mentioned earlier that was peeking in and out of the shot. So let's crawl in there in that center aisle and have a closer look at that. Okay, so after crawling under the layout, access is under there. I'm now in the center aisle of the layout. So from here, I can pan around. You can kind of see where I'm at. Okay. But what we're in here to see mostly is the Sioux Locks. Two of the locks, anyway, I was able to model. That's the MacArthur Lock. Has a little tour boat there and a sailboat. And then the Pollock, where this giant 1,000-footer is. This is a representation of the Paul Arthur Goethe. Paul Arthur Goethe is the largest freighter on the lakes, measuring 1,013.5 feet long by 105 feet wide. I scratch built this freighter out of wood and some styrene. The crane is a kit bash from a Walther's bridge crane. That's the administration building where crews control the ships in and out of the locks. That's a marine post office. Observation tower. There's a newer, more modern one there today, but this is the one I remember as a kid. Open air observation tower. And you see people out in there watching the boats. That lock obviously in the lower position. Gates closed, and this lock is in the upper position. So this would be the Lake Superior elevation. About 21, 22 feet higher than Lake Huron's elevation, which is on the other side. And that's why the locks exist, to raise and lower the shipping traffic between the two lake levels. And then from here you can see the International Bridge. And up here in the corner is a small model of the Mackinac Bridge, very famous, connecting the lower and upper peninsulas. And of course there's a freighter passing under there as well. Okay, I'm back out. Here's another shot of the Mackinac Bridge. Getting back to the Sault Ste. Marie border crossing, right here is roughly where the U.S.-Canadian border is. On the Canadian side, there's a nice island where there's walking trails. There's another tour boat. This channel leads to the Canadian lock. There's an emergency swing gate down there to seal off the lock for maintenance. Here's swing bridge. Now the prototype rail swing bridge is only single track, but the Walther's version was double. And I like that because I can create this passing siding and also a yard lead track for a small variation of Steelton Yard. This bridge is mostly made out of wood. The arches are made out of Walther's double track arch bridge kits. The railing is a combination of Walther's and Lionel fencing kits. Here you see some Northern Power. We have Wisconsin Central, Algoma Central, Sioux Line, Canadian Pacific. And this large industry here is Algoma Steel. And again, the tracks curve behind the plant, so it brings the scenery forward. And in front of Algoma Steel is second freighter. Well, maybe third if you count the little freighter that's under the Mackinac Bridge over there. This one's made out of a Sylvan kit. And I named it after my daughters, Addison and Bailey. So I shortened each name and turned into Atabay. This freighter, you can actually see inside the hull where there's iron ore being unloaded by the bridge crane right here and put into piles. Here's a long rolling mill. You can even see inside it a little bit. And that brings us to the end of this section. And on the other side of there is Alpena that you saw a little bit ago. So there's layout A. And I might have said a minute ago that there were 3 freighters. There's actually 4 if you count the small one under the Mackinac Bridge. It's 1, 2, 3, and then that one, 4. But there was layout A, and over here is the smaller one, layout B. And this roughly represents heading from Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, north towards Ottawa Canyon Provincial Park. So we'll start here. This is a representation of St. Mary's paper, which no longer exists. There are plans to make layout B a little longer, so that I can make this rail yard longer and also model the park a little bit better on the other side. On the corner here, this cul-de-sac is actually modeled after my parents' house, which is right there, and their neighboring houses. not located in Sault Ste. Marie. But I incorporated this scene here. So we'll just pretend it's part of Sault Ste. Marie. Kind of like that model of my house I showed you. It's not in Flint or Durand, but that was a good place to put it on the layout. So we'll just pretend that it's in that area. A couple more houses over here and a small church. I'd like to put a little wedding scene in front of this at some point. Now we're going to head north and leave the city area, or industrial area mostly, that we saw here and then back over there on layout A. And we're going to head north towards the Agua Canyon Park. There's the Montreal River trestle and a power dam, hydroelectric dam below it. The prototype is single track, but this entire layout here, layout B, is double track. It was designed that way intentionally. Again, a few more liberties. Here the double track does split. One goes in the tunnel, one stays out front. Here's a model of our place in northern Michigan. I recently upgraded the house here, updated the house so it looks a little better than the original I had. The original I had, I bashed out of a barn when I was like 16 or 17. That trailer there is the very first structure I ever scratch built. Again, at 16 years old. And up ahead is the Agua Canyon. So this is another reason why I want to expand the layout 5 more feet, is so right in here, right through there, I can actually have room to make a good representation of the park itself. All right, let me go ahead and get around the furnace here. Okay, here we are coming back around through the canyon into a tunnel where you see we're going under the court where my folks' house is in reality. Again, on the model, this represents Sault Ste. Marie, and then on the other side, you're back by St. Mary's paper. So from there, I'm going to back up and kind of give you an overview of the entire layout that you've seen. So there's layout B. There's layout A. And if you add the length of layout A and the width of layout B here, the entire model railroad is about 38 feet from end to end. And someday, I'd like to put a bridge, probably unpowered because this is DCC and this is DC, but a bridge somewhere in here that will cross over so that I can at least roll trains back and forth between the two layouts. Well, that's it, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that. It was a lot of fun to make. A lot of progress was made over the last year. And again, please feel free to go back and watch the update/tour videos from 2023, 2024. I might have made more, but those I recall I made at least a year ago, and then of course a year prior to that. But again, thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a nice comment below and give a thumbs up. And until next time, take care, everybody. Bye for now.